After years of Nanoleaf planning, developing, and teasing their Sense Plus smart wireless switch, it's finally here. This is a smart wireless switch for your smart home with multiple programmable buttons, plus an included motion and light sensor. Now, I've been very eager to test this in my smart home. It's been great in some ways. There are some potential deal breakers that you should probably know before purchasing one of these. We'll cover all that in today's video. Let's go. Yo, what's up guys? My name is Shane and this channel is all about helping you build an easy Apple home smart home with new videos and live streams published every week. All right, so Nanoleaf has been developing this product here for quite some time. I first saw it at CES 2023. That's almost 2 years ago. They even showcased a version of this switch way back at CES 2020. That's 5 years ago. I was beginning to think we'd never actually see the Sense Plus hit the market, but it is here now. Although if you look at the box, you'll notice there's no mention of Apple Home, Matter, or any other smart home ecosystem. The hardware does support Matter over Thread, Bluetooth, and Nanoleaf's proprietary new Lightwave protocol. It also has a motion and light sensor built in. We'll come back to that in just a minute, but first let's take a look inside the box. We have some documentation, the switch, and a mounting plate. The switch plate has magnets and 3M sticky pads on the back. There are also 2 screw holes, although no screws are provided in the box. You can attach this to pretty much any surface. The switch attaches magnetically to the mount. The switch has an on button, an off button, a programmable button on either side, and brightness controls right in the middle. Inside, we can see that the switch is powered by a large CR2477 battery. I believe this is the first smart home device I've ever tested that uses one of these batteries, so most likely it's not a battery that you'll just have laying around the house. Might want to pick up a few extra ones in case it ever gets low. Nanoleaf is claiming a battery life of at least 1 year. Obviously, I'm not able to test that just yet, but hopefully we get a good year out of this. To set up the switch, open up the Nanoleaf app, tap the 3 dots and tap Add New Device. Then scan the code that's on the back of the switch. Press and hold the on and off buttons as prompted. Then choose the room that the device will go in and rename the switch if you want. Next, we're prompted to create a control group. Here you can simply choose the other Nanoleaf devices that you already have to pair with the switch. Some devices you might see here will need a firmware update before they can be added to the Sense Plus, but I'll go ahead and choose my new Nanoleaf blocks, name your group, and we're all done. The app will then give you a nice little tutorial for controlling the Sense Plus, kind of showing you how to use it. Next, we can start configuring the switch. You can program both the left and the right buttons for a single press, double press, and a long press. Options currently are to cycle white temperature, cycle colors, set color, set scene, or set brightness. Then if you tap on the Sense Plus tab, you have some options for the motion and light sensor. You can turn the motion sensor on, off, or pause it right from here. If you tap the motion settings, you can adjust the timeout duration. This is how long the lights will remain on after no motion has been detected. The fade out option will make the lights gradually dim for the set period once the timeout period has been reached. Also interesting is that there is a same room motion option that will allow you to utilize other sensors in the room to turn on the lights in the control group. So currently Nanoleaf doesn't sell any other motion sensors or anything like that. So I guess currently this is just, you know, for if you have multiple Sense Plus switches in the same room, you can kind of tie these together for the same, to kind of work on the same motion automations. If you tap the daylight sensor, you can basically configure the motion automations to only work when the room is dark. You can also adjust the sensitivity of the light sensor here. Now let's talk about everything we can do with this switch. Earlier you heard me mention that it does support Bluetooth, Matter over Thread, and Nanoleaf's new proprietary Lightwave protocol. Unfortunately, I do have a lot of Nanoleaf lights right here in my studio that we can test out. When using the Switch Plus to control Nanoleaf lights, it will be utilizing that new Lightwave protocol. That is something proprietary that Nanoleaf has developed really just for this, so that the Switch will work seamlessly and most effective with their lighting products. And I must say, it works incredibly well. It's lightning fast, and I'm pretty sure I've had a 0 failure rate during my testing with this Switch. I've used numerous smart buttons in my smart home to control Nanoleaf and all kinds of other smart home products, and I don't think a single one has worked as fast or as reliably as the Sense Plus when controlling Nanoleaf lights. So while I'm not super crazy about another proprietary protocol being used in my house, I'm not really mad at this. It's comparable in performance, I'd say, to Lutron Caseda's proprietary Clear Connect protocol that they use for connectivity of all the Caseda smart light switches, often considered, the undisputed best in the market for smart light switches. In fact, the Lutron Pico remotes used to control the Lutron Caseda smart switches is the smart button experience that I've had that I'd say compares in performance the most to this Sense Plus, which is good. The buttons all work extremely well and do exactly what I programmed them to do the first time without any delay. This is great if your primary use for the Sense Plus is to control your Nanoleaf lights. Now remember, I said the Switch also has a motion and light sensor built in. The motion sensor has worked really well for me so far. It's very responsive. It's great to have that sensor built right into the Switch. I can have my lights turn on when I walk in the room. Again, it's been very responsive and reliable during my testing. Light sensor also is a nice addition, although I don't really use that on a regular basis. If you only want the motion automation to happen when the room is dark, you do have the ability to do that though. I do wish there was an option to never turn the lights off once motion is detected. My Switch is in a place that it doesn't see me when I'm actually sitting here at my desk. So I like to be able to have the motion turn the main light on, then turn the light off manually when I leave the room. Unfortunately, that's not an option. You do have to set a timeout duration if you choose to use the motion sensor. You can set this up to 6 hours. Which is the maximum. So that's what I did, and that has been good enough. That way the light does not turn off on me while I'm just sitting here at the desk. You do have the ability to pause the motion sensor automations both in the app or by a manual long press of the on or off button. That's a nice added touch. Now let's talk about that Matter support. For those that don't know, Matter is the new smart home standard that allows you to connect your smart home devices to any smart home ecosystem, including Apple Home, Google Home, etc. And when I first got this Switch, it did not support Matter out of the box, even though it was promised. Well, I'm happy to say that they have updated this already, and you can now connect this device to Matter. To do this, you go to your Switch's settings, and the first time you do this, there will be an option to connect the Switch to Matter. Once you do this, you can pair the device to your smart home platform of choice. Of course, for me, that's going to be Apple Home. I'll tap connect and it will add the Switch to my Apple Home ecosystem. It's using the Thread protocol to do this, so you will need a Thread border router for your smart home ecosystem. In Apple Home, that can be a second generation HomePod, a HomePod Mini, or an Apple TV 4K with Thread. The Sense Plus comes through as a programmable switch in Apple Home, allowing me to program those two side buttons in my smart home ecosystem. Only these two programmable buttons are exposed through Matter. Unfortunately, the light sensor and the motion sensor are not. I would have loved to see those sensors also brought through over Matter, but unfortunately, we don't see that. I should note that they are calling this Matter early access, which I guess sort of means it's like a beta feature. Not really sure, but I am glad it's here. I haven't had much time to test this since it was only recently added, but so far it's worked really well for me. Again, when using it with Matter, it's utilizing the Thread protocol. Of course, reaction times and performance here with Matter will largely depend on the other accessories you are controlling in your smart home, but when testing it to control other Matter over Thread accessories, accessories, it has been very responsive. Here you can see the reaction time when I'm using it to turn on and off an Eve Energy smart plug and an Eve Energy smart outlet. Both also connect to Apple Home over Thread. And same thing here as I'm using it to lock my Aqara U300 smart lock, also connected to Apple Home via Matter over Thread. Now let's talk the pros and cons so we can determine if this may be a good addition to your smart home. Now again, I haven't tested the Matter support for very long, but so far it seems to work really well in terms of connectivity and performance. I do wish that motion and light sensor was exposed to Matter so I could utilize them in my Apple Home automations. I think it would also be nice if they would actually expose all the buttons to Matter, but that is a limitation. Currently, when you connect the Sense Plus to Matter, you can only use those 2 buttons through Matter, meaning you can no longer program them in the Nanoleaf app for your Nanoleaf lights like we did earlier. I think it would be nice to also have the option to do this separately, maybe for the other buttons, you know, for those people who may just want a good Matter smart switch and not necessarily interested in controlling other Nanoleaf products. Another thing I found a bit limiting is the way it requires you to set up a control group for the switch in the Nanoleaf app. Again, this does work really well using that new Lightwave protocol, but all the buttons can only control that entire group unless you connect the switch to Matter. For example, I like to control my Nanoleaf skylight ceiling lights separately from all the other Nanoleaf lights in my room. I'd like to be able to use the on off and the brightness control for the skylight and maybe use those programmable buttons to activate scenes or effects for all of my other Nanoleaf lights. Currently, you cannot do that. Well, at least not in the Nanoleaf app. This is something I imagine could be easily addressed in a future firmware update. It would be nice if you could configure this in the Nanoleaf app alone. You know, when you just want to control your Nanoleaf lights, maybe separately. That way it could utilize that Lightwave protocol that does work so well. But I gotta say, it's been extremely responsive. Just doing this through Matter as well, which I assume must be utilizing Thread to control those Nanoleaf lights when doing it through Matter. So honestly, I can still accomplish this and it does work really well. You do just have to go through a few extra steps and connect the switch to Matter and your smart home platform for that. Now, another big miss in my opinion is the mounting plate that they ship with this switch. It does look really nice, but it's designed to be used as a standalone switch that you just kind of attach to a surface somewhere. If you want to do like me and actually replace an existing light switch with this, it's not so easy, especially if you have anything more than a single gang switch plate. The mounting hardware that they give you is not compatible with existing switch boxes. They could have easily included a mounting bracket that could be attached, you know, to an existing switch box. This is again just a big missed opportunity, I think, mainly because it is the same exact size as a standard Decora switch. For example, the Wemo Stage smart scene controller that supports Thread that came out a while back. It's a little smart button the same size as this. Basically, that came with a little mounting bracket that you can attach and replace an existing switch if you want. I wish Nanoleaf would have included something like that in the box with this. So for me, in order to replace one of my physical switches in this 2-gang switch plate, I actually used a Lutron Caseta Pico remote bracket and taped a magnet to the back of it. This actually does work really well, but again, it would have been nice if they included everything in the box that you would need for this same kind of setup to use in place of an existing switch. I'll include links to everything down below in the description, you know, in case you want to do the same as I did and use like a Pico bracket and stuff like that. It can be done, you just got to get some extra stuff. Now, with all that said, it does work extremely well when controlling your Nanoleaf lights. Again, I can't say enough how impressed I am with that Lightwave protocol that they're using with this. Again, I've used many smart home buttons for controlling my Nanoleaf lights here in the studio, including the flick twist, which I do really like as well. But even with the flick twist, I can turn on and off the lights, change colors and scenes, stuff like that. But there isn't a great way to control the brightness. The Sense Plus has just been the best way, I think, for controlling my Nanoleaf skylight to include colors, effects, and brightness. And of course, you've got that motion sensor and the light sensor built in, which is a really nice addition. It also has worked really well when connecting the switch to Matter to control my other smart home accessories, in addition to the Nanoleaf lights through Matter. Really happy with that so far. I'll admit, when I first started working on this video, it was going to be much more of a mixed review because it initially didn't support Matter out of the box, but now that they've updated that, the device is a lot less limited, and it works really well. So there are still a few limitations as pointed out in this video that I think they could address in firmware updates, but overall I'm very happy with it since they've opened up that Matter support. However, if you don't have any Nanoleaf lights or don't plan to get any, then the switch is probably not for you. At the time of this recording, the on-off buttons and the brightness controls can only be configured in the Nanoleaf app to control Nanoleaf products. You could, of course, still use those two other programmable buttons in your smart home through Matter, but all those other buttons would just be wasted space if you don't have Nanoleaf lights to use them with. If you do, and you want a good wireless switch to control them with some added functionality in those programmable buttons, then I think this is a great product. A bit of a specific use case maybe, but for those people who do fall in that category, I think you'll be very happy. It's perfect for someone like me who wants to control my Nanoleaf skylight using those main controls on the switch and then utilize those multi-action programmable buttons to do other things through Matter. If you want to check out my review on the Nanoleaf skylight that you've seen in this video, click this video right over here. If you found this video helpful, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Subscribe for new smart home videos just like this and live streams every week. Let me know in the comments below if this smart switch would be something that would work for you. And if not, maybe what smart switch or buttons you prefer to use in your smart home. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.